Ladies and gentlemen, welcome once again to the Packernet Podcast. I am your host and resident fanalist, as always, Ryan Schlip. Check us out online, packernet.com. Find me on Twitter, pack_that app. So what are we doing today? Tidbit of news and notes. Not a ton Packers related, but there is some big news out there. I want to go over, probably for the last day, semi-looking back, but not really. Critiques of critiques, if you will. And then, assuming there's time, which there should be, I want to look a little bit at the Thursday night game for fun. So what the heck am I talking about? Let's warm up here with a couple little things. I've been saying for a while now that I'm relatively open to a lot of different thoughts because I don't fully know what's good, bad, what's happening with certain things, whatever. But I need people to start making more convincing cases because I just keep hearing very arbitrary things and then people just tacking on which is bad and we should stop. Right? Like LaFleur wears blue pants and that's the problem. Like, what? Maybe I'm stupid and I just need you to talk slower. But I'm not connecting the dots, and I need you to connect a couple more dots for me because I don't know what you're talking about. So let me give you an example of what I'm talking about. So Dusty Evely does a lot of the work in terms of charting every single play that the Packers do. Here was a post from him. It says, I've heard a lot of Packers should be under center more after some clips I posted this week. Pause. That right there, that quote, the Packers should be under center more, is exactly what I'm talking about. Why? What happens? Why is it like, again, you might have a very good reason. You might be exactly right. It's terrible and you have 9, 10, 11, 13 great reasons why, but I don't know what those are. And you're not making a good point if you're not really articulating your point very much. Just saying we should be under center more. Should we? Are we not enough? How often are we? I don't know what you're talking about. There's a lot of missing information here, but people just say stuff. He goes on to say, Packers' overall offensive shotgun versus under center. Shotgun, 6.5 yards per attempt, 52.1% success rate. Under center, 5.1 yards per attempt, 48.8% success rate. So people just start screaming, we need to be under center more. Probably because he posted a video of us being under center and it was a good play. And so for some reason, some people see one thing and go, oh, that's just how you fix it. I don't understand why people do that. Again, under center, 5.1, shotgun, 6.5. Success rate, 49 to 52. Not that different, but shotgun is better. And even if it wasn't, I don't understand I don't know what you're talking about. By the way, that split works for both passing and running. Passing, 6.9 compared to 7.8. 49% success to 53% success. Running, which is a big thing everybody always wants to talk about too. You shouldn't run out of shotgun. How stupid are you? That's not true. 3.8 yards per attempt compared to 4.1 running. Success rate 48.5 compared to 50.5. Now the funny thing about this is the exact thing I'm trying to get people to stop doing, they're going to start doing when they see things like this posted by Dusty. They're going to say, oh, we need to stop being under center. We should be in shotgun more. Stop it. Stop it. Hilariously, I didn't even see this. Somebody says, if we could stop, all caps, running the ball from shotgun on third and short, that would be great. Again, this is some weird fan thing where we think that you need to be closer to the line of scrimmage when you turn around and hand the ball off to the guy behind you, as opposed to standing in shotgun and then handing it to the guy next to you. Anyways, that has been thoroughly debunked at this point, but people don't realize that, and they keep saying that. We need to stop running the ball from shotgun on third and short. So what did Dusty do? He goes and finds the stats. From under center, 5 times we've run under center. 15 times we've run from shotgun, so we do it more from shotgun, which is driving people crazy. But what about the results? In the 5 times we've run from under center on third and short, 0 first downs, 1 touchdown. From shotgun, 15 snaps, 6 first downs, and a touchdown. We have yet to convert a first down from under center. We've done it 6 times from shotgun. Yes, we've done it more often, but it's still a It's still going to be more when it's a multiple of 0. I don't need to do the math on that. That brings me to the idiotic article of the week. This is written by Hubs. Who is Hubs? Let's see if we can find this guy. So Hubs, co-EIC for Barstool Sports, the Yankees ruined my life. Eric Hubs, go Pack Go. So he is the, I guess, resident Packers fan. Huge following, 130,000 followers. So he certainly has more reach than I do by far. I may have to engage a little bit with some of this content. Anyways, here is what he wrote. Here's the article. Matt LaFleur has no balls and needs to give up play calling for the future. All right, I mean, look, I'm glad it's an article because he's going to lay out his case. So at least I can read through it and decide whether or not he's swayed me on this point. Automatically, though, I'm a little, skeptical that I'm going to be swayed, considering it starts with has no balls in a game where we went for it 3 times, I think, on 4th down, converted 2 of them, and then one of them was a 4th and 8, which even the most go-for-it people in the world are like, why did you go for it? I thought the complaint was that he was too risky, not risky enough. But I guess he's a coward and shouldn't call plays. Okay, let's see. Packers are confusing. They beat good teams, lose to bad teams. Got it. How do you lose to a team that gives up 40 to New England and Buffalo? If this is your Super Bowl contender, you should be right on par with those teams. They scored 13 points. Yep, that obviously wasn't good. We kind of have it. I feel like I have a pretty good grasp on what went wrong, but let's see what his perspective is. People want to point their fingers at Jordan Love. He shows the triple cover thing, which was bad. And then he shows, again, the play, wild 4th down, ends in turnover on downs. He says, but when you zoom out, he says everyone and their mother's talking about this play. When you zoom out on 4th down, Love has nowhere to go with the ball. Well, again, so he shows the TV copy, which doesn't show you anything, and then he shows the Peter Bukowski clip where he shows the all-22, and he says if you zoom out, there's nowhere to go. It's not true. Romeo Doubs is the guy you throw to at the top of the screen. Again, Jordan couldn't make that throw because he was under pressure, which is the problem with this play. But this is a very easy timing route. That ball should have been in the air and in his chest for a 1st down. He goes on to say he bought as much time as he could, throw up what he thought would be a one-on-one jump ball. Dobbs gave up on the play, blah, blah, blah. Okay? Here's the bigger problem with the situation, and it's a microcosm of what's wrong with the Packers' offense. On 3rd and 3, you're running the sideline pass out of trips. It was sniffed out immediately and lost 5 yards. Okay, so what? First of all, haven't we done this to teams like 1,000 times, blowing up people in the backfield, and we get all excited because our guys made a play? Should we not be excited about those plays because really all it is our defensive coordinator called down and said this is the play they're going to run, that we just got them figured out? Or can we just say that somebody made a play? And again, there's a lot here. I keep seeing people post this where it's like, oh, it got sniffed out. And what? People just draw random conclusions because a guy did a thing on a play. Again, I went back and watched, and I saw this exact play, and we didn't throw to the guy. Hilariously, he takes a clip from Jacob Morley, who says, there has to be a tell on the play. This is he says, 3rd time this season we've seen this out of bunch formation, and the DB triggers on it immediately. Is 3 times in 8 games a lot? You're saying we do this too often? Once every other game we run this? I'm guessing that number is wrong, but I'm just trying to think, is that honestly the case we're trying to make here? I've seen this at least 2 other times. Okay, and do you think we just create new plays every single time and we don't recycle plays? Is that what you think we do? And yes, the DB triggers immediately. I'm guessing that happens all the time, but there's an additional problem here. The additional problem is that the guy tasked with blocking him doesn't block him. And if he does block him, this is a very different situation that could potentially have been a touchdown. All we needed was for a guy to block him. And that's not what happened. Also, if this ball, I'm not blaming Jordan, but it just so happened that he threw the ball right to the defender so that the running back, as soon as he caught it right in the defender's face, and he ends up getting tackled. If he had even a little bit of space to get inside of that block, and then you're looking at basically 2 defenders with 2 blockers. This very potentially was a touchdown, if not easily within the 5-yard line. And all it takes is just a slightly earlier thrown ball, a slightly different location on the ball, a block, anything, and this becomes a successful play. But the defense made a good play, and we got to make the biggest deal out of it in the world. Well, there's a tell. Yeah, there's probably a tell on the play that at least they know that this is a possibility. They're scared. But I know for a fact we don't always run this out of it, and the good news is, if they're scared of it, that means you can play other stuff off of it. But you have to run it sometimes so that they're actually scared of it. And again, when you run it, you got to execute it. That's the other thing I'm so tired of. We run a play, there's terrible execution, and the thought is, why did the idiot coach run this stupid play? Because if people could execute it, it would work. That's why. It's hard to look like a good coach when your plays don't work because guys can't do their job. And then he posts Nathan Marzan's tweet that says 25% of Jordan Love's pass attempts over the last 6 games have been behind the line of scrimmage, second highest behind only Kyler Murray. Only 13% of his pass attempts in that span have been in the intermediate area, which is the 3rd lowest. First of all, this is such a stupid thing. The first thing you have to do is demonstrate to me that this is bad, which is not done here. And again, I can prove that it's not bad because when I go look at who does these things at the highest rates, it's some of the best quarterbacks in football. So it's not inherently bad. You're not telling me why it's happening. It might be happening for a very good reason. Trying to throw deep when that's what the defense is trying to take away from you isn't always the best idea. But you don't know why we're doing it. You just assume because he's stupid, which is a stupid way to go through things. When a guy who's obviously an extremely intelligent person, when it comes to football, far beyond anybody, myself included, or anybody listening to this podcast, assuming Kyle Shanahan didn't tune in or something. Hey, Kyle, good to see you, bro. Why make that call? And remember, I told you there are times when Jordan Love will check into those plays. Why? Because he's reading the defense and is determining that that is our best numbers matchup. There is a numbers opportunity on the outside if we can get the ball out there quick enough, but that still means we have to block properly. Not to mention we are successful on these plays, but nobody wants to talk about it. We just wait and wait and wait for a bad one so that we can add that to the pile of this is why we shouldn't do this anymore. It's also funny that the 3rd lowest in the 10 to 19-yard range. If you take any quarterback, they're going to be high in some categories and low in other categories. So what? You have to demonstrate to me why this is good or bad. Not everybody's like right in the middle of all categories. Why is it bad? What area, what percentage of what area should everybody be in? Or is it different on a case-by-case basis? Does it depend on the offense, on the quarterback, on the teams you're playing, and the defensive scheme and all that kind of stuff? Is any of that get factored in? Just saying, here's a list of stats, and I'm not going to tell you what that means, but it's either really high or really low, therefore it's bad. I don't know what you're talking about. So let's play that game for a second. Let's look at, first of all, at deep passes. Okay? Well, Jalen Hurts is number 1 in the percentage of his passes. That'll be relevant probably starting tomorrow. Number 1 in the percentage of his throws being deep passes. Eagles are a good team. Where's Jordan Love on that list? Here's another little interesting tidbit. The guy who's dead last, 39th out of 39, is Jared Goff. So wait, doing it all the time is good for the Eagles. Doing it almost never has been very good for the Lions. Another guy that does it not very often is Mac Jones for the 49ers. He's the 2nd lowest, and the 49ers have been pretty successful. So maybe you shouldn't do it. Well, the 3rd lowest is Justin Fields, and they don't win any games, so maybe that is bad. Except J.J. McCarthy is the 3rd highest, so maybe that's bad. Or maybe just trying to say doing something all the time or never is either always good or always bad is kind of stupid, and it really depends on the offense, and it depends on certain things. Jordan Love is 15th at 12.8%, which is right next to Sam Darnold, who is probably the best quarterback in football right now at 13%, who is just behind Pat Mahomes at 13.3%. Are we okay with this? Or do we need to make a change arbitrarily based on nothing? Well, then there's the coveted intermediate range, 10 to 19 yards. And boy, oh boy, have I got some bad news for you, folks. Jordan Love is not at the top of this list. In fact, he is tied with Kyler Murray at 31st out of 38. You know who's at the bottom of the list? Aaron Rodgers, 11% of the time. He's doing pretty good. You know who's second from the bottom? Jalen Hurts. Okay? You know who's at the top of this list? 31% of the time? Marcus Mariota, followed by J.J. McCarthy. So should we be at the top of the list? Because, I mean, there's also Lamar Jackson and Sam Darnold and Josh Allen, but then there's Michael Penix, but then there's Drake May and Daniel Jones, but then there's Trevor Lawrence. And on the don't do it hardly ever side, Aaron Rodgers and Jalen Hurts, who are looking quite good, but then Justin Fields, which is bad, and then but Bo Nix, which is good, but Jake Browning, which is bad, and Russell Wilson, which is bad. What is it I'm supposed to take away from this? How about short passes? Oh man, Jordan Love, he's 31st in terms of not doing it very often. Oh, he's near the bottom, 31st out of 37. You know who does it the least? Lamar Jackson, followed by Baker Mayfield. Patrick Mahomes is 34th. Josh Allen is 33rd. Jordan Love is 31st. Should we do more of this, like Justin Fields, who's number one in this category? I mean, Justin Herbert and Jalen Hurts are up here, along with Aaron Rodgers and Matt Stafford. But Justin Fields and Tyrod Taylor and Spencer Rattler and Geno Smith are also in the top 10. It kind of seems to me that there's almost nothing I can take away by looking at the tops and bottoms of teams that are in these ranges. How about behind the line of scrimmage, which is the ultimate sin? I hate behind the line of scrimmage. You should never, ever do it. And Jordan Love is fourth highest. 22% of his passes are behind the line of scrimmage. That's evil. You know who else throws 22% behind the line of scrimmage? Pat Mahomes and Aaron Rodgers. Is that a problem? In the top 10 include not just Kyler Murray, but Aaron Rodgers, Jordan Love, Pat Mahomes, Josh Allen, Bo Nix, and Baker Mayfield. That doesn't seem like terrible company to me. Maybe we should do it less often, like Justin Fields, who's at the bottom. Doesn't mean it's always terrible. Sam Darnold, almost never. He's at the bottom. Matt Stafford, Justin Herbert. There is no correlation here whatsoever. It's just a matter of doing something for whatever freaking reason. There's different offenses that do different things for different reasons. Maybe it's the defense, maybe it's your offense, maybe it's whatever. But saying things like he has the second highest rate of behind the line of scrimmage throws behind only Kyler Murray, so what? What does that mean? What are you trying to tell me with that? Only 13% of his passes were in the 10 to 19 yard, which is the third lowest. So what? What is that supposed to tell me? But again, Packer fans will look at that and go, oh, this is the worst. Why? Why is it bad? Can anyone tell me why it's bad? And if it's bad for us, why isn't it bad for other teams that are having wild success doing the same things we are? You can't, because it's not. It's not inherently bad. And if you'd like to make a larger case about why we specifically shouldn't do it, then you have to make that specific case. You can't just list out stats and then just leave it there and be like, see, there it is. What did you see that? I mean, it'd be like if I said Jordan Love, 83.6% completion rate behind the line of scrimmage. What do you think about that? I don't know. What should I think about that? Is that good? Is that bad? I would need to know the context. What are other people doing? What is like the minimum standard for good in that situation? I don't know. Why are you just listing random stats and expecting me to have some kind of a visceral reaction? And worse, why are so many people having a visceral reaction to random stats being posted? I don't understand. It's amazing to me how you can just say stuff and people react the way. It's like a spell you put on people. It's honestly like sharks with blood in the water. You know what I mean? I've said this before when we'd go like bluegill fishing and stuff. The bluegills, you get them into a frenzy, like right off the docks. There'd be a bunch of bluegills there. And, you know, you start dropping stuff in there to the point where I would just take some of that dirt that the worms are in, and you throw it in there, they come up and eat it. You know, we'd spit in the water. They come, he ate my spit. That's what people are like on social media with this stuff. You throw any random stat and they're like, oh, see? Fire him! Fire Matt LaFleur! I don't see anything. What are you talking about? I feel like you just ate Nathan's spit on that one, dude. He just spit in the water and you just went and ate it. All right, let's take a break. We'll come back and continue through this, and then we'll try to move on to some more intelligent article writing. We'll be right back. Then he goes on to say, it makes even less sense when Love is one of the best down-the-field passers in the game. Well, not necessarily, because nobody throws down the field a lot. Jalen Hurts does it more than anyone, and is at 16.7%. It's always a low percentage thing. And again, Jordan is 15th. It's a relatively high percentage. I mean, he's at 13%. There are 10 quarterbacks. In fact, it's less than that if you actually look at quarterbacks that have actually played any amount. Jordan Love is 9th. And at 13%, the only quarterbacks at 14 or higher, there's only 5 of them. And it's Caleb, Baker, Matthew Stafford, Jackson Dart, and Jalen Hurts. And actually, he lines up quite well. I mean, again, he has 151.3 passer rating. Right, well, the first issue with that is the further down the field, the better the stats are. So, for example, if you look at deep passing and you look at PFF grades, there are 2 quarterbacks with 99.9 grades. That's not a thing that happens. But because it's deep passing, it's going to have that. In fact, Jordan Love, you could just point out, has a 91.6 passer rating. Actually, kind of terribly, he has a 77.6 passer rating, which is not good. But he has a 91.6 PFF passing grade, which seems really high, but he ranks 7th. So there's that. As far as intermediate, yes, he does have a high passer rating. So does everybody. There are 12 quarterbacks out of 26 when you filter, out all the guys that haven't hardly played. So almost half have 100-plus passer rating. Accidentally turning the volume all the way down. 100-plus passer rating on these throws. But again, that's not even necessarily the biggest issue. There's certainly a disconnect between how often Jordan Love does it and how good he is at doing it. Right? He is... These numbers are old and have gotten even better in their favor. He's 5th in terms of PFF passing grade, but is 25th out of 26 in attempts. Now, I might have to go back and look at more games, but there are issues here. And part of this is going to be one of the funny things when we look at Benjamin Solak's article. It's like, we don't push the ball down the field enough, and then you actually look at, it's like we did actually a lot in this game. The biggest issue I think that I'm having, and again, this is where you could try to make the case as best as you can, but you're still going to have to demonstrate a lot of things to me. I don't know why we feel like there's just a button you can push to just make a thing happen. Like, call the throw the ball 15-yard pass. Call that play from the playbook. Like, what are you talking about? Almost every play is going to have a pass that is at or behind the line of scrimmage. That's a check down. It means that Jordan has decided to throw that pass. And then there are going to be shorter, intermediate, and deeper options. A lot of it is going to have to do with what the defense is doing to determine where the ball goes. And again, as we've heard from Matt LaFleur and other people, defenses are playing the Packers in a way to give up the underneath stuff and take away the deeper things. So if what you're saying is you want to force the ball in that area, which is going to mean more picks, that's fine, because this is another statistical disconnect that a lot of people have. He's very successful in the 10 to 19-yard range, but he doesn't do it very often. Right. Maybe some of that has to do with the fact that we don't do it very often, and it needs to be kind of set up. And if you decide we're just going to do it every single play, the success rate goes down through the floor. What if, hypothetically, some of this stuff underneath, some of this at or behind the line of scrimmage stuff is what sets things up, which, in fact, I saw in this last game. It's the fake toss to Savion or the fake handoff to Golden coming across the formation that pulls the linebackers up so that you can dump it off to Musgrave in that intermediate section. But if you don't run that and you don't get the linebackers to bite, then you don't have that open Musgrave throw, and suddenly Jordan Love doesn't have such a high grade in that range. But again, we have this feeling of like, well, Jordan Love has a 151.3 passer rating, which is actually better now. It's actually a 151.3 passer rating. No, that's exactly right. Oh, I was thinking of the Mazan. No, he doesn't even mention it. It's number 1 in the NFL, his passer rating, 151.3. There is no button you can push to say throw it 12 yards down the field. And again, even if you could say all these, yes, there is, yes, you can, all that stuff, why isn't Jordan throwing that ball? Is it because somebody isn't? Maybe it is because somebody isn't open. Or maybe it's like when he throws into triple coverage and had Romeo 20 yards down the field wide open. Maybe that's kind of what we're talking about. Maybe it's a combination of things. But the way we oversimplify stuff is so freaking annoying. And as much as I'm a stats guy and I lean in that direction, I think stats are like a weapon that shouldn't be used by hardly anybody because nobody knows how to use them. I think most people should end up watching film and not looking at stats because when you go back and look at it, it takes the sting out of a lot of things. You look at it and say, well, why didn't so-and-so do this? Like, well, what do you want them to do? Well, yeah, I guess I don't know. I think it'll give you a better perspective on some things. Statistics, people need to stay away from. It's just too dangerous of a weapon for people to be just wielding. Too many just easy, obvious conclusions when you just stare at numbers and not football players on a field. You forget that these are human beings out there trying to actually execute things, and sometimes they do, and sometimes just a small little misstep causes things to get broken up, and you're like, well, why didn't you just call the thing play? Well, because the guard tripped. Can you find that in your stats where the guard trips? What are the guard tripping stats? Where he trips and then there's just a free runner coming at your quarterback. You have any stats to represent that? Then shut the hell up. I know someone's at the front door. Then LaFleur, he says, LaFleur wants this team to be run dominant so badly, but refuses to give in to the fact that they can't run block. Bruce Irons says, 5th in rushing attempts, 24th in rush yards per attempt, 20th in passing attempts, 2nd in net yards per attempt. Well, again, there's a lot that could go into that, but let me just refine the question a little bit because I think that we can narrow this down and kind of get to the truth a little better to determine whether this is a problem or not, because attempts aren't really the best way to do that. For example, and I'm not saying this is the situation with the Packers because it hasn't been, but there are certainly situations that are more likely to run. For example, one of the things that people do mistakenly with statistics is they'll look and they'll say, it's the whole correlation causation thing. Well, teams that are the best end up one of the top rushing attempts. So if you have 30 carries in a game, you're 90% to win the game. You're looking at that backwards. The reason teams with 30-plus attempts end up winning games more often is because when you're up by like 50, you run the ball the entire game. That doesn't mean if you start and just determine we're just going to run the ball all the time that you're going to win. That's not how that works. And so when you say you're 5th in rushing attempts, well, it's kind of situational. If it's 4th and an inch, I don't want you to pass just because you've already run too many times. I want you to do what's best. So what the point is, I want to look at something called pass rate over expected. That is to say, in any given situation, there's sort of a standard thing that you do. And then if you pass in a run situation or run in a pass situation, then that would change things, right? So they are 5th in passing attempts, but are they 5th in, I guess it would be rush rate over expected? No. They are heavier on the spectrum of running in passing situations, but more than half of the league is. In order, teams that have a higher rush rate over expected, and again, pay attention to whether these are just all the worst teams. Jets, Panthers, Lions, Seahawks, Ravens, Saints, Bears, Dolphins, Browns, Titans, Falcons, and then it's basically a tie between Buffalo and Green Bay. So they're actually 13th in terms of rushing over expected. So I don't necessarily, just trying to give a little bit of ground here, hate the sort of blanket idea of, since you're a better passing team than running team, you should be a little bit more in the pass rate over expected than rush rate over expected. But even that is very general, and it doesn't, like if you sat down and had a meeting with Matt LaFleur, I'm guessing there would be books and books and books of stuff to go through in what you do and why, as opposed to such simplistic thinking of, why don't you just pass more? By the way, while we're here, Week 9, pass rate over expected against defenses, the Packers by far, way the most in far of rushing over expected, which is not surprising. And the Packers are going to have to respond to that, because I understand that some of it is being afraid to pass, but if you add afraid to pass and you can't stop the run, it's going to get real ugly. We need to force people to pass because we want them to step into what we do best. But again, I don't buy into this overall narrative of just stop running so much. Well, no, we can't. What we need is better execution. If you concede running, then I don't want to say you're entirely conceding the game, but kind of. Also, good luck with that success in the fourth quarter running the ball when you haven't been running the ball in the first, second, and third quarter. Good luck setting up that play action, which works so well for the Packers, when you decide we're not going to run the ball anymore. Good luck with all that stuff. But again, we don't think about causation. We don't think about the ripple effects that go through when you pull this frickin' Jenga thing out. That everything else is going to collapse. I just want to move this one thing. You can't. If you shift one thing, everything shifts with it. It's possible that some of the things that are having success because of our ability to stick to things that are having less success, because you're building off of that. And if you get rid of the things that are not having success, then you're suddenly going to not start having success in those areas that you've been having success. I'm not saying I know this, but I'm saying you have to demonstrate to me that you're not just throwing stats at me. Again, I understand where Bruce Irons is coming from, but I don't know that there's necessarily a solution here that makes a lot of sense to me. If you want to talk about slightly pass more, okay, fine. Maybe. I don't know. It's hard to know. And then he posts a Kevin Cole thing that shows basically Jordan Love is a good quarterback, which he is, and I don't think anybody's arguing with that, but he's trying to, pin that to the idea that we should just stop running so much and pass the ball more. The funny thing is then he posts this other thing that's supposed to help him, NFL on ESPN. When I watch the Packers offense, it's almost like this obsession with creation. Dan Orlovsky and Mina Kimes believe the Green Bay's offense could be more efficient and, quote-unquote, take the profit sometimes. And he says Orlovsky and Gruden see it. Well, let's actually listen to what was said here. Okay?
Dan, what went wrong there for the Packers?
Well, once again, this offensive line got beat up.
Yep.
This offensive line, I've talked about all season long. If it doesn't get better, it's not going to go to the Super Bowl. The second thing is Jordan had really bad eyes, really bad eyes.
Okay, so to start, offensive line can't block and Jordan Love was playing poorly. This is how we're going to defend the idea we should stop running the ball and pass the ball more, because we can't protect the quarterback and Jordan played poorly. That's great. That's brilliant. Well done.
Eyes. I want to ask you this question. I feel like when I watch the Packers offense, it's almost like this obsession with creation. We will out-create or out-scheme things for us, rather than sometimes it's okay to line up and play. Like, do you feel that way sometimes when I watch them?
Take a profit.
Yeah.
They should be more efficient than they are.
Yeah, it was a poor efficiency game. That's what it was. I don't know what the creation thing has to do with anything, but it's also something you can't just do. It's like saying just convert more third downs. Just convert more third downs. Okay, we'll work on that. The problem was inefficiency. Fixing it is not as easy as just saying, how about we run the convert the third down play? I have no idea how he thinks this helps his argument. I'm guessing he just read the title there and thought that they were just going to rag on Matt LaFleur because of his obsession with creation, not realizing that in its full context, they blame the offensive line, the lack of pass rush, and Jordan Love having quote-unquote bad eyes. Then as far as the Gruden thing, there's a clip here. Gruden had the Packers as a top team, but I don't know after losing Kraft. Greg Olson, who is not Gruden, says Green Bay touched the ball 8 times, didn't punt, and scored 13 points. I think they need to put the game more in Jordan Love's hands. Going into that game, I had Jordan as a top 5 guy. Okay, well, that's great that Greg Olson, who was sitting on his couch just casually watching that as well as a billion other games, thought that we should just put the ball in Jordan Love's hands more. I'm not sure I'm taking that necessarily as any kind of expertise, because that's something people have been saying forever. Matt LaFleur's holding back Jordan Love. It's the same people that saying that Jordan Love, he's throwing interceptions even though he hasn't been, saying that we're bad on third down despite the fact that we were one of the top in football. Like this is exactly what fans do. It's the same kind of bull crap. I think you should give the ball to Jordan more. Okay, great. I'm glad that your opinion in a high-wind game where Jordan basically threw 2 picks and the offensive line can't pass block is to pass more. I'm glad that is your expertise. Congratulations. So then, after all this wonderful just grabbing of random information, He says, I think it's been a long time coming for LaFleur to give up play calling. The offense needs a new voice. I'm just listening to this stuff. Like, what are you talking? Like, could I be the offensive coordinator then? Because I'd be a new voice. What is new voice? What does that mean? How is that better? How is new voice better? What's wrong with LaFleur's voice? Are you talking about like his tone? What are we talking about? Do I expect a team that's 5-2-1 to make a drastic change like this? No, but they absolutely should. Okay, why? The Packers offense leaves far too much on the table every week. That's not true. It's not every week. It's this week, and you're overreacting to it. And part of it, by the way, is because of Jordan Love, who you said should have done more. Whether they're starting slow like in the Pittsburgh, Arizona games or playing with their food like the Bengals game, it's never a full 60-minute complete effort where they just run away with the game because the offense was relentless, which, by the way, very rarely does that happen to any team. But okay, sure, 60 minutes, offense, defense, special teams. Got it. That's the standard. Until you do that, then we should fire the coach. Okay. When you look at the numbers under the hood, you see it's a play calling issue. No, I don't. You have not demonstrated that in any way whatsoever. Again, I would love for, what's this guy's name? Oh, we're all freezing up. I would love for these guys who want to talk about like film and play calling. Like if you want to talk about stats, let's talk stats. But if you want to talk play calling, then you better know what the hell you're talking about in terms of play calling. Because I would love for whatever this guy's name is, my internet's decided that it's freaking out. I got too many tabs open or something. I don't know. I would love for him to go through and do what I did and do a play-by-play and say, okay, this situation, what play should be called and why? And then we run it out and say, okay, what was wrong with that play call? Tell me. He doesn't have a freaking clue. He's a Packer fan that's annoyed that the offense isn't as good as he wants it to be. The record isn't good enough. They just need to be dominant. And because they're not dominant, he's going to throw a fit and say somebody else should call the plays, even though we know nothing about our offensive coordinator and his ability to call plays. Nothing. Maybe he's a genius. Maybe he's an idiot. I don't know. And neither do you. By the way, what makes you think he would call different plays than what Matt LaFleur is calling? They come from the same Shanahan school. He's been under LaFleur for however long. They, as in collaboratively, have built an offense that they believe is best to run with Jordan Love and our running back and our offensive line and all that stuff. It is a collaborative effort. We're acting like the offensive coordinator is just sitting there dying for open rebellion and would take over and just completely transform the offense. It's very largely his offense as well as Matt LaFleur's. If you want something drastically different, then we need to be talking about firing our coaching staff and going out and hiring all new people. He goes on to complain that LaFleur likes Savion more than he likes Matthew Golden, which again, we have to assume is just because he's too stupid to recognize how good Matthew Golden is, because we just refuse to acknowledge any other potential reasons for that, like why would his snap counts actually be dropping? Maybe it's a Golden issue more than it's a Matt LaFleur's an idiot issue, but, who knows? So somehow through that, I was supposed to come to the conclusion that Matt LaFleur has no balls and needs to give up play calling. I don't think I got there, and I don't know that I really saw much other than random stats that mean nothing and a lot of complaining. Again, maybe if you want to say we should pass a little more, but it's easier to say that in a macro sense than to zoom in and look at a game and say this is a situation where something should have happened. And this is why I would love to have the ability for players or fans to call plays, because you guys would all suck at it. Suck at it. Let's take our final break. We don't have nearly as much time as I thought, but I do want to go over this Benjamin Solak article. He talks a little bit in depth as somebody who is pretty good at this stuff. He's a good stats person. He also watches things or whatever. So it's also one of those that all the Packers detractors and Packers detractors, that actually works out, and LaFleur haters have been pointing to, while again, obviously not even reading the article, but I want to go over that in a minute. We'll take a break. We'll be right back. So he starts off, it's one of those articles that has a couple different things in it, but he starts off with this. The big thing, where is the Packers' dominance we were promised? The Packers' loss to the Panthers on Sunday was the worst in franchise history. He says, well, not really. But by Vegas expectations, this is tied for the biggest upset loss for the Packers since the 1970 merger, as Green Bay was favored by 13.5 points to Carolina, which is kind of again, I never understood why the line was set at that, but let's just assume it's exactly right, and that's what it should have been. It does kind of raise questions in my mind in terms of, is something very broken? The problem I have for people that like to use that as an attack line, and again, I have to stop being defensive because people don't know how to make arguments, but the biggest problem people have is that they'll say, see, this is what the Packers always do. It's literally a record. Do you understand what that means? That means this doesn't always happen. In fact, that's always been one of the biggest things with the Packers. Trust me, having done this for years and looking at the stats, the Packers don't lose those games. They don't. Oh no, Matt LaFleur always plays down to competition. Nope, not true at all. When we were favored by, I don't know, like 5 or more or whatever the case, we basically always win those games. So the fact that we lost is significant. But it's not because it always happens. The issue, and this is the thing. If you want to convince anybody that we need to move on from Matt LaFleur, you're going to have to let go of the idea that he's always been a bad coach. Because you're just going to keep running into the same problems. All the things that you dislike are things that Matt LaFleur's always been and don't talk to me about wins. Oh, I'm going to. Because, of course, that's unbelievably relevant. Especially considering you thought they wouldn't win. You thought that we were going to lose with Rodgers. You thought we were going to lose after Rodgers. You thought we were going to lose to the Steelers. You always think we're going to lose and we keep winning. So no, it's relevant. I'm going to talk about the wins. I'm going to talk about the success. I'm going to talk about the development of Jordan Love. I'm going to talk about the fact that our offenses have been very explosive and very good for his entire tenure here. I'm going to talk about 2020 and 2021 and all that stuff. I'm going to talk about all of it. And if your argument to me is he's always been bad, then you cannot convince me of that. It's the same with Brian Gutekunst. If you're saying he's the same guy he's always been, then the debate is over. I'm good with keeping him. The only way I'm coming off of this is if there's a new issue here that the NFL perhaps is caught on to him, is passing him by. But you understand that means he's been a good coach and things are changing, which always happens. McCarthy was a great coach until it wasn't so great. You know, Dom Capers was an elite defensive mind until he became a joke. Ted Thompson was unbelievably talented as a GM until things started to get a little bad. So I always have the expectation that at some point, things are going to go south for coaches, for GMs, for players across the board. And when that happens, and you need more than just like an instance of like, oh, a bad thing happened, because bad things happen all the time. It takes time to come to the conclusion that it seems like at this point, things have reached a tipping point. And I've said that I'm seeing it with Gutekunst, and it's a matter of how things pan out. I thought things were going great, but now as you look at it, it's like, well, if this offensive line thing is blowing up in our face and Golden is maybe not what we thought it was going to be, changes the calculus a ton. So we'll see by the end of the year. We'll go back and look at it. But it's the same with Matt LaFleur. If you want to look at this and say this is the worst loss in Green Bay Packers history, and they're playing down to competition is something that, you know, Matt LaFleur didn't do in the past, but it seems to be a problem now, and he doesn't seem to be able to figure out how to fix it. I'm all in on that conversation. But when you start talking about, oh, it's always been this way, okay, then we're not having the conversation because you don't know what the hell you're talking about. You're just wrong, and you're just an angry, bitter person that really hates a guy and doesn't want to give him any credit for anything. So that's where I'm at with the whole, you know, worst loss in Packers history or whatever. That triggers, you know, and it wasn't just that. It was Cleveland as well, and it's the fact that they haven't covered the spread, which, by the way, Matt LaFleur, fantastic at covering the spread. He has a great record of that. This year, terrible record, which means something is different. It doesn't necessarily mean that Matt LaFleur is the league has passed him by and all that stuff, but it at least raises the question, and it just comes down to, okay, can you pull out of this tailspin? Can you turn this thing around or not? If not, then yeah, we have to have a conversation. But just the absolute nonsense being vomited all over the place is making it very hard for me to even think this through because I spend all my time defending a guy that I don't even know if I want to defend. I have no idea. Maybe he is the problem. Maybe we do need to go out. Maybe the NFL has moved past this style of offense, which it doesn't seem like it. Every time we look at an offense, they run the same crap we're doing. But maybe we do. We need a new GM and we need a new coach and all that. That's fine. But man, you guys make me on just defense mode 24/7 with the stupidity. Packers are the only team this season to have lost 2 games in which they were more than a touchdown favorite. The performance against the Browns somewhat made sense. Packers were onboarding Micah Parsons. They had just lost Jaden Reed. The Browns' defense was seriously good, too, a top 5 unit by every metric. Even then, it took Jordan Love interception with under 4 minutes remaining, then a blocked Brandon McManus field goal for the Packers to lose. So what about the Panthers? Their offense and defense were both average entering Week 9. Carolina walked into Green Bay missing multiple starting offensive linemen. Quarterback Bryce Young was 2-5 as a starter on the road, yet the Packers trailed for nearly the entire second half, trying to score with 2:32 remaining before immediately surrendering the game-sealing field goal drive. He goes on to say when they acquired Parsons, they felt like a contender, adding a game-changing player on defense. Green Bay went from 20-1 to win the Super Bowl to 14-1 immediately after the trade, 11-1 before Week 1, and 8-1 after the team beat the Lions in the opener. After Sunday's loss, the Packers are still 9-1 to win the Super Bowl, but what was a nagging doubt after the loss to the Browns has grown into a larger one after the 40-40 tie to the Cowboys, late game win over the Cardinals, a quiet first half against the Steelers, and Sunday's loss to the Panthers. If the Parsons trade was supposed to make the Packers into a juggernaut, why haven't we seen it happen yet? I would just quickly counter that with the idea that Parsons is not on offense, and a lot of the issues we've had are on offense. With the exception of the Dallas game, it's been pretty exclusively on offense. So that question by itself isn't 100% making a ton of sense. But to a degree, the results against the Panthers are aberrative. The Packers had only 7 drives as Carolina wisely shortened the game. Panthers snapped the ball with minimum time left on a running clock, inched their way down the field and with the rushing attack, and went forward on fourth downs. The best defense against a high-powered offense like the Packers unit is keeping it on the sideline. The second best defense, playing deep zone coverage and forcing the offense to inch along. Wait, so you're saying that they're forcing us into short passes? Weird. Carolina was in zone 89.5% of its snaps against Green Bay. Of those 7 Packers drives, 6 crossed the Panthers' 25-yard line. The Packers scored only 13 points. This is exactly what I was saying. And again, can we say that that's somehow the Packers' fault or is emblematic of what they are as a team or the coaching staff or whatever? I don't think so. I think a lot of this does come down to luck. It's why we haven't really seen this in the past, even though we can call it the same thing. That's why so far he hasn't learned since Cleveland. This is a very different loss than Cleveland. It's not the same thing. It's not the same lessons. It's not the same mistakes. What are you talking about? Hasn't learned what? I think one of the things that people kept posting was this little chart here, which, again, it's an interesting chart, but it doesn't apply to this week. Here's the chart that people were posting. Air yards per attempt by spread under Matt LaFleur. When they're the favorite of 7 or 7.5 points or more, his air yards are at 6.5. If we're a favorite but under 7 or fewer, 7.8 yards per attempt. Underdog, 8.5. Underdog of 7.5 or more, 9.8. So the idea being the worse the team is, the more we throw the ball down the field. And again, this is one of those things where we're supposed to just make these mental leaps without really understanding. But the leaps we're supposed to make are we're playing down to our competition. We're more aggressive against bad teams and less aggressive against good, or the other way around. More aggressive against good teams, less aggressive against bad teams because we just don't care and just play down to them, whatever. The problem is nobody actually read the article and saw the first sentence underneath this chart. But Love averaged 8.1 air yards per attempt Sunday, further downfield than we'd expect, meaning this Panthers game doesn't apply to that. Also, again, when it comes to these charts, you have to understand the why behind it. Because again, fans are way too easy to look at a stat, and then when somebody says, well, why? The answer is, well, because he's an idiot. Okay, well, I guess if that's as deep as you want to look into it, then I can't help with that. After the game, LaFleur wished that their passing game was a little more cautious. In other words, not only do we push the ball down the field, we should have done it less, which would fit the narrative of in other words, he wanted it more in line with this chart. And what he's saying is part of the problem is that we were too aggressive, which is probably true, when we shouldn't have been because they were giving us the underneath throws. Interesting. He says, I do think there was a little bit of pressing to get a big play, but when it's not there, you can't chase it. Says this is not unfamiliar. The Chiefs faced this challenge in 2021 and 2022 when opposing defenses almost universally deployed soft shell coverages against their downfield passing attack, demanding the Chiefs string together long, mistake-free drives. We spent much of last September bemoaning the explosion of the two high defenses and the accompanying deflation of the pass game. He goes on to say, but the Packers are not well suited to the changing tide. This season, only 2 Packers skill position players have more than 20 yards after the catch over expectation as calculated by Next Gen Stats. One is running back Josh Jacobs. The other, unsurprisingly, is superstar tight end Tucker Kraft, who tore his ACL in the game and is out for the remainder of the season. Kraft has 109 yards after the catch over expected this year. The rest of the team has 111 combined. Meaning, if you're going to play this game of dinking and dunking underneath, you got to be able to make plays beyond that. If it's just throw for 2 yards, tackle, which, by the way, is what happens, and everyone gets mad at Matt LaFleur, when really it's a matter of make the throw, we need guys to block, and we need him to get more yards. That's how you beat these defenses. And everybody's solution is just stop doing it. Just throw it deep down the field where all the coverage is. Okay, yeah, great plan. He says Love is not used to authoring 9-play, 10-play, 12-play scoring drives. It's not how Watson, Dobbs, and Golden excel. That sort of offensive approach belongs to teams like the Panthers, who are trying to shorten a game as a 13.5-point underdog to turn some of those longer drives into quicker ones that end in touchdowns. The Packers need more yards after the catch, an element only Kraft was providing. A better run game would also help, much like in yards after the catch, the Packers are struggling relative to expectations. So what do we need to do? We need short passes with yards after contact, or after the catch, and we need a run game. That's how we win. Matt LaFleur is trying those things, and everyone's mad at Matt LaFleur for doing the things that work, except we can't execute them. Okay, do you understand, though, that that is what the defense is giving us to work with? There's not going to be a very high success rate if you pass into, a 25-yard pass down the field when they're playing cover 2. If they're going to give you something, you need to take it. And the problem is we can't take it. We can't execute. Why do they keep passing behind the line of scrimmage? Because that's what they're giving us. Because of their defense, this is what other teams would do. This is exactly what the Chiefs or Bills would do, and they would have success doing it. The problem is we're not. The problem is when we go into that bunch and we throw that pass, instead of it being blocked up for a touchdown like the Chiefs and the Bills would probably get, we get a tackle for a loss of 3 yards or 5 yards or whatever it ends up being. And then everyone's mad at LaFleur because why didn't you just call the 15-yard pass play? You got to be able to run the football. I think that's been a bit of an issue at times, LaFleur said. If they're going to play soft shell and you're handing the ball off and getting 2 yards, that's not that it was consistently like that, but there were a couple times like that. You get behind the sticks and it's more difficult. That's exactly correct. If they're playing off, they're giving you the run. You have to be able to block and run for more yards. You have to make them suffer. You can't pass deep down the field if you can't scare them into coming up. Packers remain an excellent team and will play a major role in the NFC, even with the offensive injuries. There's no doubting that, but there's a friction between philosophy and execution that must be resolved between now and the postseason. Green Bay doesn't have the players or precision necessary to reliably string together long scoring drives. The Packers can do it for stretches, of course, 20 straight completions against the Steelers, but haven't displayed the full-fledged dominance expected of them this season. That inconsistency is why. The good news is salvation can come from many places. If the offensive line finally gets a few healthy games together, perhaps the run game becomes more explosive. In the absence of Kraft, perhaps the yak options such as Luke Musgrave, Golden, or Williams will emerge. Reed, who's been great for yak in previous seasons with the Packers, could return at some point this season from his collarbone and foot injuries. Love has another level to unlock in the decision-making against shell defenses. He can play faster and more aggressively. And maybe they can just avoid penalties, fumbles, and missed kicks for a 4-game postseason run, and that'll be that. They'll lift the Lombardi Trophy, and none will be the wiser. So, again, everybody's kind of throwing this out there without having read it. The biggest takeaway here is significantly less about play calling. I mean, he talks about scheme and all that, but at the end of the day, it's not really scheme. He doesn't even propose an option for what the scheme difference can be. The fact of the matter is, when they play to take away the big play, you have to be able to play underneath. This is what teams do to the Packers. It's the exact same thing with the Packers, where it's like, well, you wouldn't dare pass, and they're like, okay, fine, then we'll just run. Well, if they can run successfully, now we're kind of screwed, right? Teams are doing that to us, but we can't run successfully, and we can't throw the underneath stuff. Because even when they're light in as far as the numbers, and they need guys to make plays, when we throw a wide receiver screen, the numbers are in our favor. We just need number 1 to block number 1, number 2 to block number 2, and then he's running free. But if one guy doesn't block, then he gets through, and if our guy can't make the one guy miss, which he usually can't, now it's instead of like a 3-on-2, we got one guy blowing up a block and then going and making a tackle. And we want to blame Matt LaFleur. No, you're supposed to win that. Listen, all I can do is put you in a situation to succeed where you're chasing the numbers, right? Well, they're playing soft shell defense, so it's a light box. Let's run. Okay, we get 2 yards or -1 yard because some jag-off offensive lineman gets blown up immediately and there's a tackle behind the line of scrimmage. But why are we running so much? Because that's what you have to do in that situation. You're going to try to pass into a light box when they're playing the pass? You're asking to lose. No, at some point, if they throw rock, you got to be able to throw paper and succeed. Everybody's like, well, just throw scissors and try to stab the rock. Like, you could try. Be much easier to just throw paper. We've got to execute. Again, I'm not fully convinced that Matt LaFleur is doing everything right. I don't know what the problem is, whether it's play calling or just guys not being prepared or the discipline or all that kind of stuff. I don't know. It's going to take the season to be able to look at stuff and go back and determine things. It especially makes it hard after a loss like this because everybody's being emotional and nobody's being rational, and I have to sift through 99% garbage with people just saying random nonsense like we should be under center more, and then having to do the research on people's just random musings that don't make any frickin' sense. Come to find out they're exactly wrong. They know what the hell they're talking about, and it just makes it very difficult to actually try to come to certain conclusions. I think the best thing I could possibly do is go back and watch the game and say, in this situation, what could we have done differently? What should we have done differently? And again, I went back and watched the pass plays. I didn't expect it to be like it was. I kind of thought it would be like the Cleveland game, and it wasn't. There were a lot of opportunities. I think there was a ton of opportunities for us to not only win, but cover that spread easily. And I went through it, play by play, situation by situation, right? We looked at it. Had this not happened, I mean, we were on our way to scoring a touchdown, but then there was a fumble. We were on our way to scoring a touchdown, but there was a frickin' collapse here and this and that and the other. Penalty, sack. If it wasn't for those one little stupid things that happened, this is a blowout. So, we gotta monitor the situation. We gotta see how things go. The biggest issue I have is that there's just too much data. And again, it actually takes a lot of work to actually figure things out. And even the guys in the building don't always know. In fact, they usually don't know exactly what to do. And they have all the information. They know what plays are called. They know what the offense and defense are supposed to do and why. They understand exactly what the pass and run splits are and why they are what they are. We don't know any of that, but we have all the answers without any information. It's crazy. It's really impressive, actually. Well, I said I was going to cover some news and notes as well as the Thursday game. We didn't get to that. News and notes, pretty straightforward. Some stuff happened, but not for the Packers. Tucker was officially put on IR. They signed tight end Josh Weil from the practice squad to the active 53-man roster. I'll talk a little bit more about that tomorrow, as well as some of the other guys, kind of where they came from or what they did in the offseason or all that kind of stuff. They signed tight end McAllen Castles to the practice squad, previously with Eagles, Chargers, and Rams. Signed tight end Drake Dabney to the practice squad, previously with the Titans. Also promoted defensive end pass rusher Aaron Mosby from the practice squad to the 53. I always was a fan of his. We talked about that earlier in the offseason. And signed linebacker Christian Welch to the practice squad. Let's see. They also released offensive lineman Lecitus Smith from the practice squad and signed wide receiver Michael Woods II to the practice squad. So, a lot of minor stuff. There's still talk about the Asante Samuel thing. We'll see how that goes. He's been doing some workouts with several teams. My understanding is that he's, what the heck is the team, Miami? No, it was Panthers, I think, who we just played. He's working out with the Panthers right now, assuming he doesn't sign like that day, which some teams like to do that. Don't let him out the door. I think his next stop might be Green Bay, and then we got a shot. But we'll see how it goes. And as for Thursday Night Football, it's Raiders-Broncos, so we don't need to... I'm going to do a little bit of Betty stuff, but I don't know how many people care as much, so I might just do that on my own time. Anywho, y'all have a good rest of your day. I will talk to you tomorrow. Have a good one. Bye-bye.
But you don't know nothing. Running your mouth with no evidence. Throwing numbers like they mean something, but you can't explain the relevance. Can't explain it. Show me the tape, show me the logic. Not just your feelings about the topic. Where's your proof? Where's your truth? Back it up or step aside. Right-based analysis. You're lazy opinions. Right-based analysis. Watch 3